You wake up on your 15th birthday in ancient Rome. Your childhood is over, literally, as of this morning. By tonight, you'll be expected to act like a full adult. Within 3 years, you'll probably be married to someone you've never met, watching friends die from infected cuts. And if you're poor, well, the building you're sleeping in might collapse before you finish reading this sentence. This is what it was really like to be a teenager in the greatest empire the world had ever seen. Let's start with the good news. You're rich. Your family owns a beautiful villa. You've got slaves to dress you, and you'll never worry about where your next meal is coming from. Now here's the bad news. None of that matters because you have zero control over your own life. It's March 17th, 75 AD, and you're 14 years old. Today is your toga virilis ceremony, the day you officially become a man in Rome. You wake up before dawn, and your father takes you to the family shrine. He removes the bulla, that protective amulet you've worn since you were a baby, and hangs it on a statue of the household gods. Your childhood is gone. A slave wraps you in the plain white toga virilis. This thing weighs a ton and you have no idea how to put it on, but congratulations, you're a man now. At 14, you walk through the streets of Rome to the Forum. People congratulate your father. Citizens hand you coins. You're registered as a citizen. You can vote. You can join the military. You're legally a man. But here's what nobody mentions. Your father still controls everything. The paterfamilias, the head of the household, has absolute power. Your father decides who you'll marry. He controls all the money. He picks your career. You can't legally own property until you're 25 years old. Even wearing the toga of manhood, you're basically a very tall child. One evening, a year later, your father announces, "You're betrothed to Claudia, daughter of Senator Marcus." You've never met Claudia. The wedding won't happen for a few years. But your future? Settled. No discussion. Your daily routine is exhausting. You wake before dawn because a slave has to dress you in your toga. You still can't figure this thing out. Then it's off to school with your rhetoric teacher. You're learning to be an orator by practicing speeches about made-up legal cases. It's mind-numbingly boring. Midday brings a quick meal: bread, cheese, olives, wine. Your tutor discusses philosophy with you. Then, finally, freedom. You head to the Campus Martius with friends to wrestle, box, and throw javelins. You're training to be a soldier, even though you'll probably never fight. Rich boys become officers, not infantry. Later, it's the bathhouse. This is where real Roman life happens: politics, gossip, business deals. You mostly listen because young men are supposed to be seen, not heard. By evening, you're at a dinner party, reclining on couches because sitting is for children. Wine flows. Someone's father rants about Emperor Vespasian's building projects. You stay quiet. But here's what's eating at you. You're 17 now. Your friends are excited about the gladiator fights at that massive amphitheater they're building. Meanwhile, you've got a young bride-to-be. It feels weird, but it's normal here. The pressure never stops. Live up to your family name. Make political connections. Show up at the Forum every day to be seen. Host dinners. Accompany your father to pay respect to his patron. Never show weakness. And here's the real kicker. You're one of the lucky ones. Because if you think being a rich teenager in Rome is hard, wait until you hear what life is like when you're poor. Actually, let's not wait. Let's talk about the other 95% of Roman teenagers right now. Let me introduce you to Marcus. He's 15, and he lives on the 6th floor of an insula, one of those massive apartment buildings that house most of Rome's 1 million people. Here's a fun fact. His building is held together by hope and cheap mortar. These insulae are architectural nightmares. They're 5 to 7 stories tall, made of wood and mud brick, and they have a nasty habit of either collapsing or bursting into flames. Sometimes both. In fact, just 11 years ago in 64 AD, the Great Fire of Rome destroyed thousands of these buildings. The city's still rebuilding. Marcus's family, all 6 of them, live in a single room on the top floor. Why the top floor? Because it's cheapest. It's also the most dangerous. No running water up here, no toilet, no windows. In summer, it's an oven. In winter, you can see your breath. The stairs are so narrow and steep that getting furniture up here is basically impossible. Oh, and there's no kitchen. Most poor Romans eat at street-side cookshops because, surprise, having open flames in a wooden building filled with people is a terrible idea. Doesn't stop everyone, though. Fires start constantly. When Marcus wakes up, and he wakes up early, he's already been working for 2 years. He started at age 13, hauling materials at a construction site. Some kids start even younger. Archaeologists found a tombstone for a 4-year-old named Quartulus. The stone shows him holding a pickaxe. He worked in a mine at 4. The work is back-breaking. Marcus carries heavy loads up scaffolding all day. His back already hurts. His hands are covered in calluses and cuts. One of those cuts got infected last month, and for a week he thought he was going to die. No doctor. Doctors cost money. He just hoped it would heal. Luckily, it did. Not everyone's so lucky. His friend Gaius couldn't survive an infected foot wound at 16. The real terror, though, is the streets at night. Rome has about 6,000 to 7,000 vigils, basically night watchmen, for a city of 1 million people. Do the math. That's not nearly enough. After dark, gangs control entire neighborhoods. They've got clubs, daggers, and zero interest in your excuses for being out late. Marcus saw a man get stabbed over a stolen loaf of bread last month. The vigils showed up 2 hours later. They wrote it down and left. And if you get caught stealing? Well, that depends on who you are. If you're rich, you pay a fine and go home. If you're poor like Marcus, you get whipped in public. Or worse, sent to the mines. There are stories of kids Marcus's age being sent to work in Spanish silver mines for stealing a chicken. Most don't last a year. The legal system in Rome isn't just unfair. It's openly brutal to the poor. Same crime, completely different punishment based on whether you can afford a lawyer. Food is another constant worry. Rome experiences food shortages about 1 year out of every 4. When grain supplies run low, prices spike. The government gives out free grain, but only to adult male citizens. Marcus's little sisters? They're on their own. Marcus is hungry most of the time. Not starving, that's rare in the city center, but that gnawing, constant hunger that never quite goes away. He's shorter than rich kids his age. His teeth are bad. His body shows the stress of malnutrition and hard labor. But hey, at least he's alive. And in 75 AD Rome, for a poor teenager, that's honestly an achievement. Now here's the thing. Whether you're rich like our first kid or poor like Marcus, there are some nightmares you just can't escape. Death, for instance, is extremely democratic. Let's talk numbers, because they're honestly terrifying. 28% of Roman children die before their first birthday. Half don't make it to age 10. The average life expectancy at birth is somewhere between 25 and 30 years. Now, if you make it past childhood, your odds improve. But improve is relative. You're still living in a world with no antibiotics, no real surgery, and medical treatments that mostly involve praying to the right God and hoping for the best. Remember Marcus's infected cut? That's not a minor inconvenience. That's a legitimate death threat. People die from infected splinters, from bad teeth, from drinking contaminated water. The Tiber River, which runs through Rome, is basically an open sewer. The smell alone could knock you over. Rich families can afford doctors, but Roman medicine is, let's call it, experimental. Your doctor might prescribe spider webs for wounds. The good news is that some of it accidentally works. The bad news is that most of it doesn't. Disease doesn't discriminate. Tuberculosis, malaria, dysentery, intestinal parasites, they're everywhere. Plague outbreaks sweep through the city every few years, killing thousands. You know those beautiful public bathhouses we mentioned? Yeah, they're basically germ incubators. Everyone's sharing the same water, and no one understands how disease actually spreads. By the time you're 18, you've probably lost at least half your childhood friends. Your neighbor's family of 6 kids? Now they've got 2. That cousin you played with? Died from fever last winter? Your best friend's little brother? Building collapse. Speaking of which, buildings just fall down in Rome, especially those insulae we talked about. The satirist Juvenal wrote about walking through Rome in constant fear of being crushed by falling masonry or having someone dump their chamber pot on your head from a 6th-story window. He wasn't joking about either. And then there's the military. If you're a male citizen, you can be conscripted starting at age 16, though they usually prefer guys age 17 to 23. Once you're in, you're signing up for 25 years of service. The training is brutal. Roman discipline is legendary for a reason. Disobey an order? Death penalty. Fall asleep on watch? Death penalty. Run away? They'll hunt you down, bring you back, and finish you in front of your unit. The Romans don't mess around. Even if you never get conscripted, you can't escape the violence. Rome runs on spectacle, and that spectacle is often deadly. The new Colosseum they're building? It'll seat 50,000 people who will cheer while men finish each other. The Circus Maximus holds 250,000 for chariot races where drivers regularly get trampled to death. And here's maybe the worst part. There's no therapy, no counseling, no concept of trauma or PTSD. You're just expected to deal with watching your siblings die, your friends disappear, your neighbors get crushed by falling buildings. You bury it, move on, and hope you're not next. So whether you're wearing an expensive toga or wearing rags, whether you're eating grapes at a dinner party or fighting for scraps, death is always one bad day away. Welcome to being a teenager in the most powerful empire on Earth. And here's the part that never makes it into the history books. Somehow, despite all of this, Roman teenagers found ways to be teenagers. Archaeologists have found dice games carved into the steps of the Forum. Graffiti in Pompeii from teenagers complaining about their teachers. Love notes scratched into walls. One inscription reads, "Successus the weaver loves Iris, but she doesn't care for him." Classic teenage heartbreak, preserved in volcanic ash for 2,000 years. They made jokes, they had friendships, they fell in love, even if they couldn't marry who they wanted. There's evidence of secret social clubs where young people would meet. The rich kids had their bathhouse gossip sessions. The poor kids had street corner hangouts. Human nature doesn't change just because the mortality rate is horrifying. But here's what really gets overlooked. Roman society depended on these teenagers holding it together. Think about it. You're 17 years old and you're already working a full-time job or managing political obligations, expected to contribute to your family's survival or reputation, possibly serving in the military, considered a full adult with zero room for mistakes. There was no safety net, no figure it out later. The entire Roman economy, military, and social structure rested on young people performing like adults immediately. And somehow, they did it. The legions that conquered half the known world, filled with teenagers and young men in their 20s, the workshops producing everything from bread to pottery, staffed by adolescents, the next generation of senators and landowners, being trained right now at age 15. Rome didn't succeed despite treating teenagers this way. In their minds, they succeeded because of it. They believed this pressure created strong, disciplined citizens. Whether that's actually true is debatable. The early Christians who eventually took over the empire had very different ideas about childhood, compassion, and human dignity. But here's the question that haunts me. What did this do to them psychologically? Modern research shows that the teenage brain is still developing. It needs time to form identity, process trauma, develop emotional regulation. Roman teenagers got none of that. They buried their siblings, went to work, came home, and repeated it the next day. No processing, no therapy, just survival. Some historians argue this created a culture that was simultaneously incredibly resilient and incredibly brutal. A society that could build magnificent aqueducts while also cheering at public executions. That valued family bonds intensely while also practicing infant exposure. The contradictions are staggering. And maybe that's the real lesson here. The Romans weren't cartoon villains or marble statues. They were humans trying to survive in a world that was genuinely, objectively dangerous. They created systems, brutal systems, yes, but systems that kept 1 million people alive in a single city without modern medicine, electricity, or sanitation. Their teenagers paid the price for that survival. No childhood extension, no room for mistakes, no concept that maybe, just maybe, young people deserved time to grow up. When Pompeii was buried in 79 AD, they found the bodies of teenagers frozen in time. Some were running, some were huddled with family, some were alone. Each one was just trying to make it through another day in the greatest empire on Earth. They didn't make it. But for years before that volcano erupted, they'd been doing something arguably harder. They'd been living as teenagers in ancient Rome. And now, you know what that actually meant.